Peace and welcome to Super Nintendo themes that sound oddly familiar. These are all from the Super Nintendo or Super Famicom. So with no further delay, here is episode 59 of Oddly Familiar. Number 10 comes from Cool Spot, the title screen theme. And here is the Safari song titled Wipeout. There's multiple themes in this game that are influenced by outside sources. We mentioned one in a previous episode, and now Cool Spot returns. Wipeout was recorded in 1962 and released in 1963. It went on to be the definitive surfing theme in pop culture. If you ever see a surfing scene in a movie, there is a chance this will accompany it. When it comes to our Oddly scale, this one is quite high. We ranked it a 9 out of 10. It essentially is a cover of Wipeout. The game Cool Spot was released for many consoles, and of course that includes the Super Nintendo. Our number 9 spot is from the 1995 game Aretha. Here is one titled Don't Stop the Jam. And here is the 1983 song by Herbie Hancock, titled Rockit. I heard this entry randomly one day and couldn't help but think of Herbie Hancock. Both of these are from a breakdown near the middle of the track. They have similar percussions topped off by some scratching by a DJ. On the Oddly scale of familiarity, we rank this one a 6 out of 10, because it's similar but with some changes. Aretha has a faster tempo, but not by much. Rockit is around 111 BPM, while Rejoice seems to be about 112 or maybe even 113. You can see it quite easily here. Each line is the snare drum. The first drum starts at the same point and they go off tempo rather quickly. Basically, a mashup would only work if you adjust the tempo. So that's exactly what we did. And it actually isn't too bad, but it sounds a lot better when it's not the breakdown. And here it is. In at number 8 we have Super Metroid, Maridia, Sandy Desert. And from the movie Jaws, the main theme. From the 1994 Super Nintendo game and the 1975 Hollywood movie. This portion of the Jaws theme isn't the most complicated piece of music, and it's a quite popular piece. The movie Jaws was the highest grossing film in North America at the time. It also became the first film to earn $100 million in rentals. To sum it up, it made more money than any movie in Hollywood at the time. You can imagine how many people have heard the theme. On our Oddly scale, this one ranks a little bit low because it's basically 2 notes that alternate back and forth. So it receives a 3 out of 10, which happens to be the lowest score on our list today. Number 7 is from Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, the story music box. And here is Waltzing Matilda, a version by Slim Dusty.
Waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing.
Lucky number 7 comes from an old Australian folk song that was written all the way back in 1895, exactly 100 years before Yoshi's Island was released by Nintendo. The music box from Yoshi's Island plays a slowed down version of the folk song, so it's not an exact one-to-one copy. On our Oddly scale, this one receives a 7 out of 10. If you know the Waltzing Matilda melody, then you probably picked up on this one rather easily. The story music box theme was composed and arranged by Koji Kondo. I'm rather interested in finding out how he knew about this song. I don't know many Aussie folk songs, this is probably the only one. And I also learned about a new genre, bush ballad, also known as bush song or bush poem. If you learn anything from this episode, just remember this genre exists.
Waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me.
Our number 6 spot comes from Blues Brothers' Jukebox Adventure, the title screen theme. And here is the Peter Gunn theme. The connection between these two goes all the way back to 1980 when the Peter Gunn theme appeared on the soundtrack to the Blues Brothers movie. The connection was revived in 1991 and 1992 when this Blues Brothers video game was released, and this was featured in all of its 8-bit glory. The sequel, The Blues Brothers Jukebox Adventure, was released in 1993 and 1994, and the tune returned yet again. On our Oddly scale, we rate this one a 9 out of 10 because it's basically a chiptune cover. We showcased the SNES version as this is the Super Nintendo Oddly episode, but we will squeeze in the NES version here and now. Number 5. Bishoujo Wrestler History. History Stage 4. And here is Rick Astley, Together Forever. So yes, Mr. Rick Roll himself returns to our Oddly series. The last time we had him featured was all the way back in episode number 1. This song of his was recorded in 1987. The Bishoujo Wrestler game was released in 1996, almost a decade later. It seems improbable that this was the inspiration, but at the same time, if you have watched the previous episodes, then you know anything is possible. On the good old Oddly scale, we rank this one a 7 out of 10. We would also accept a 6 out of 10, but we will stick with a 7. Arranged and composed by Masako Yoshinosono. I haven't found much information on her, and as far as I can tell, this is the only game she has composed for. Number 4 is from Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, the rock theme. And here is Johnny Be Good by the one and only Chuck Berry. This unlucky number 4 entry is one we have known for a while. We just never got around to it until now. Plus, we will use any excuse to talk about the king of rock and roll, Chuck Berry. If you haven't heard his version of the tune, then maybe you heard the version on Back to the Future. Marty McFly jammed out and left the crowd shocked. They weren't ready for that yet. This 1958 rock song went on to be a smash hit. On the Rolling Stones list of 500 greatest songs of all time, this ranks 7th. I would personally put that above the Beach Boys song, but hey, that's their list. And believe me, we know what it's like for people to say your top list is out of order. On the Oddly scale, this one gets a 4 out of 10. Because let's be honest here, it's really only that intro. After that, the two pieces go their own ways. Number 3 comes from Star Fox, the theme of Titania. And from the E.T. movie, here is the main theme. Also brought up by Quantum X, this is a perfect entry for a Super Nintendo episode. On the Oddly scale, we rate this one a 5 out of 10. It's definitely not the same tempo, and there are different instruments. The only real similarity is a few notes. The obvious connection between Star Fox and E.T. is the fact they both involve space. E.T. was originally released in 1982, and it was definitely one of the biggest movies of the decade. And that was released 11 years before Star Fox in 1993. Number 2 is from Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, a theme titled Mill Fever. And here is Little Willie John and his song titled Fever.
When you put your arms around me, I get a feeling that's so hard to bear. You give me fever.
The next entry on our list today comes from the old song named Fever. Some of our viewers will say the 1960 song by Elvis, and others will say the 1958 song by Peggy Lee. However, before both of those versions, in 1956, the original recording of the song Fever was by Little Willie John. Elvis and Peggy Lee have both removed the horns and just recorded the song with finger snaps and a bass line. Now, we do love our bass lines, but my favorite version is the original by Little Willie John. The horns add that extra layer that I really enjoy. On the Oddly scale, we rate this one a 7 out of 10. The overall feeling of the tracks is quite different, but that melody is mixed in there. Plus, the name of the DKC track is Mill Fever, an obvious nod to the song Fever.
Around me, I get a feeling that's so hard to bear. You give me fever.
Our top spot today comes from Chrono Trigger, The Corridors of Time. And let's compare that to the Alan Parsons Project and their song titled Sirius. This 1995 Super Nintendo game has one of the great soundtracks on the console, composed by Yasunori Mitsuda and Nobuo Uematsu, with this particular theme being by Mitsuda. I would be interested to find out if this was a coincidence or not. I hear this Alan Parsons song quite often at sporting events. Teams like to play this at the beginning of the games while announcing their starting lineups. They try to build the suspense, and this is a good song for it. On the Oddly scale, we rate this one a 7 out of 10. It's not an exact match, but I was surprised how well they line up once I got them into an editor. The tempos are almost the exact same. Here is a quick mashup of the two with no editing at all. This is just one laid on top of the other. So we do have a little surprise coming. It may be in the next Oddly episode, or perhaps the one after that. So keep an eye out, you will know it when you see it. Also, big shout out to gold level patrons Bear Sona, Quantum X, and Chris Hayes. I am ICC, thanks for watching, peace.